Welcome to the show. Great to have your company. Coming up, plenty of chat, but let's start with something that I think highlights so much of modern politics: the spin, the identity politics, the reverse sexism, the symbolism, and the double standards. Let's do it with a compare and contrast. Australia's Prime Minister, a buffy white bloke, a conservative, Scott Morrison, versus New Zealand's Prime Minister, a feminist heroine, Jacinda Ardern, chic, the journalist's favourite. In fact, the inspiration, the font of goodness to socialists everywhere, with hosannas and palm leaves in front of her feet, laid down by politicians as far away as Germany. Here is Kurt Beck, chairman of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation and former chairman of Germany's Social Democratic Party. Here he is a few months ago.
You, Honourable Prime Minister, combine this with a very impressive and nice way of presenting yourself. You're very kind. And this is why I think your political strategies will be particularly successful, and this is why you also play a role model for us.
No one on the left is saying, Scott Morrison, you're so kind, you're an inspiration, you're so sweet and a role model. Honestly, it's the opposite. In fact, socialists here say that this ScoMo is the cruel man who, as immigration minister, tortured refugees and stopped the boats.
ScoMo's sort of far-right policies know no better than Dutton, his successor, or Turnbull's.
Now, I was thinking of all this and what a difference it makes in modern politics to be a woman. When I saw an announcement of Jacinda Ardern's new and compassionate policy to refugees, here's how Australia's SBS, left wing of course, here's how SBS reported it. The right thing to do. New Zealand set to raise refugee quota in 2020. To lift that quota significantly, SBS said. Significantly, 50%. Wow, what a heroine that Ardern is. But then I looked at the figures. New Zealand, under Ardern, is going to raise its refugee quota from 1,000 a year to 1,500. Although not for a couple of years yet. 1,500. Do you know how many refugees that this cruel and heartless Liberal government in Australia admitted in the financial year that ended in June last year? How many? 24,000. Not 1,500, 24,000. Now, it's true, Australia has 5 times New Zealand's population, but it took in 16 times more refugees. Now, Scott Morrison announced the refugee program that per capita matched Ardern's. He'd be smashed by the left as a demon, a man who turned his back on the world's most desperate people, shut the door. But then, of course, is a white bloke of the right, and not a sweet-looking woman of the left. Different rules apply. Or take this. Scott Morrison is being painted as the leader of a pack of bullies, male bullies, even though none of the female MPs and none of the journalists attacking him can name a single example of bullying by those male Liberal MPs, white males, that he leads. Not one example. All we get is vague and unspecified claims by female MPs of the Liberal left with an axe to grind and not a scrap of evidence to give. MPs like Julie Bishop.
I have seen and witnessed and experienced some appalling behaviour in Parliament. The kind of behaviour that 20 years ago, when I was the managing partner of a law firm of 200 employees, I would never have accepted.
On the other hand, with Jacinda Ardern, we indeed have been given real evidence of bullying. And bullying not by white men, but allegedly by Ardern's Maori female customs minister, Meka Watiri, sacked this week over an exchange that she allegedly had with one of her employees. Manhandling allegedly involved, although the minister denies it. And this, by the way, is the second female minister Ardern has sacked in less than a month. Can you imagine? Scott Morrison, if he'd sacked 2 female ministers in 1 month, instead of actually appointing extra female ministers 3 weeks ago, again, he'd be savaged by the left as a misogynist, as a man leading a government that was female unfriendly, as indeed it's being pilloried right now, not just in Australia, but overseas in Bloomberg, for instance. A woman problem, says Bloomberg. It's all relative, really, isn't it? And I suspect, relative to your gender, a different standard is being applied for the dorky and conservative white guy than there is for the smiling, young, fresh woman of the left. That's politics for you. Spin, image, spin, image, spin, spin, spin. Now, this ludicrous claim that the federal Liberals have a bullying problem